All right, man. You ready to get started?
Yeah, man. Hit me with what you got.
All right. This is going to be easy. Let us
Okay.
start at the beginning. Let's talk about young TJ. What did you think you were going to be when you grew up? Like, when you were young?
Okay, so if we're tracking it way, way back to the beginning, I wanted to build cuckoo clocks.
Oh,
That's not a joke.
okay.
I know, but I think I saw some segment on Sesame Street that made me really love cuckoo clocks. So for a good 4 or 5 years of my life, I remember wanting to do that. But I remember when I was like, oh God, I must have been like 9 or 10 years old, getting Nintendo Power magazine. Do you remember that magazine?
Oh, yeah. I had the first one and many of them.
And that's right. I feel like everybody in our sort of age group had them. And I remember I actually wrote a story for a Mario Brothers game or Super Mario Brothers game and sent it to the address on the back of the Nintendo Power, expecting them to be like, oh yeah, we're going to make that to the next game. So I think writing was certainly an interest of mine, and games for a long time. And it's sort of funny that 20 years later, I ended up having the job that I wanted when I was like a 9 or a 10-year-old. So
Oh,
it might not have
wow.
been the first job that I wanted, but it's still pretty crazy that the second thing I ever thought about being I got to do for 10 years.
That's really cool. Yeah, I thought I was going to be a paleontologist when I was real little. That didn't work out. But it was that second thing for me, actually, was video games. So that worked out pretty well. Same way. So,
Really? Yeah. Was it like what did you want to do in video games? Like, did you want to do design work, or what? Like, did you even know? I had no idea. I had no idea how games were
no
made. I just knew
clue.
I wanted to be involved.
Yeah, it was like I played the original Zelda and I was blown away, right? Just because it was this, I could go wherever I wanted, do whatever I wanted, and I'd like map out, dungeons so I could like keep track of where I'd been, and didn't realize I was making paper maps, early on. So it was that kind of vibe. But I didn't know anybody made games, right? It wasn't until 20 years later that I, or well, 15, I guess, until I found an opportunity. So
Yeah. It's a great industry. I don't do too much in games these days. I do a little bit, but I don't know. I think it's a really really fun industry to be in. It was long hours, but I really enjoyed it. I don't think it's anything like young TJ thought it was going to be, but it's super, super cool.
yeah, there's so many challenges in writing for games that you don't have with a straight narrative, and we'll definitely talk about that stuff a whole lot more, right? Because there's
Yeah.
the individual challenges, especially with the kind of stuff that you've worked on, can be really interesting. Now with the Ratchet and Clank stuff, it's a little more linear. You've got a little bit more control, but man, it can be a pain when the player has control and you can't control exactly when things happen. That makes it tough for sure.
Very much so. Yeah.
So at what point did you so you're going through high school, middle school, at what point were you thinking, or at this point were you even thinking, yeah, writing is kind of for me, and you were heading down that path?
I remember when I was in high school, I loved writing. So I remember writing stories as far back as when I was 15 or 16 years old. But like because I didn't know any writers, I didn't take it seriously as a possible job. Like I never knew anybody who did it. I knew absolutely nothing about getting into it. I knew that you had to have an agent and all this jazz, but like I didn't know. It was very elusive to me. So I think I always knew I wanted to be involved in it, but I always assumed until college that it would just be sort of like a moonlighting thing for me. But
Mm.
when I was in college, I had an English teacher who really loved my stories, and he pulled me aside after class, and I think this was like freshman year, and he gave me this book called The Writer's Market. It was like this big, thick reference book, like this big,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm like, what the hell am I supposed to do with this thing? And he's like, look, everybody who starts what you're doing needs to know where to take stories, where to sell stories, how to pitch them, and this book will teach you everything you need. And I just took that home and I started. And I remember I joined it. I'd audited this class, this freelance writing class in college, and I had never sold anything by this point. I'd sold like a couple of greeting cards, but that was it. And the guy who was my teacher just fucking hated me, man. He because he was writing like the great American novel, and I was trying to write like Goonies and pulpy adventure stories and fun stuff. And I'd gotten into like 2 car accidents that year, so like there were a couple of classes that I missed for legitimate reasons. But he was like, I think I have to I think I have to fail you. You're never going to get an A. The only way to get an A is to get published. That's not going to happen. You're not showing up to class. I don't like what you're writing and this and that. So I'm going to fail you. And I got so angry that I went back to my apartment and I cracked open that writer's market book and I pitched an idea of to a magazine, sold it, printed out the acceptance letter, packed it to his door, and I told him I'm happy to take that A now, thanks. And from there on out, I was dead set on being a paid writer.
That's I've never heard of something like a caveat to a grade like that. That is really cool, and like a super cool way to acknowledge that someone is, able to go ahead and, do something in the field, right? Like that's really cool. I like that.
Huh. Yeah, it was good motivation. Granted, it was a spiteful motivation, but it got me moving. And I don't know what he's doing now. But I think that was the moment where I was like, okay, I'm gonna start selling stuff and getting serious. And I've been fortunate. Aside from one detour after college where I worked at a bank, I went pretty much straight from there to Full Sail. And then after Full Sail to LA, and I was a game tester for a couple of years. But the bulk of my professional career has been as a writer. Knock on wood.
Yeah. You know what's really funny? I had a brief time in banking right before I went to Full Sail. And then I didn't realize we had these parallels, man. That's funny.
Banking is where everybody goes when they don't know what else to do.
Right. Yeah. I was like, I'm good with numbers, right? I can figure it out. That's funny. So then you kind of go ahead.
I was gonna say, like, when I was at it was like a financial corporation. When I was there, they asked if I wanted to be a technical writer. And I was like, sure. Like, what is a technical writer? They're like, well, you just have to write, procedures for how everybody does their job. So if there's ever, this was Florida, obviously, so they're like, if there's ever a hurricane, we take those procedures and we send them to temp workers all over the world, and they, we'll do the job. And I was like, cool. I spent like 6 months like figuring out what they do, and I was excited because I'm being paid to write. It was like a technical manual, but still. And as soon as I submitted it to them, they're like, thank you very much, and they fired 300 people. And then sent my instructions to India and hired everybody there. So I got like half my company, and I quit the next day and went to Full Sail. And that's when I was like, okay, now I know I want to write, but I don't want to write for anybody like this.
Oh my God, that's brutal.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
Crazy, right?
That's not cool at all. Yeah. That's
no. And I'm sure the people that fired still hate me to this day because they had no way of knowing. But
Wow, man, this is already an amazing story. So
I've never told that one either. So that's a Jameson Doral exclusive for us.
Hey, we'll take it. We like those.
There you go.
So all right, so you're finishing up school. You went out to LA. You said after you finished up at Full Sail, went out to LA. You did another university as well, right? Was that after or before Full Sail?
Before Full Sail, I went to UCF.
Okay, gotcha. Oh, so everything was here in this area. Gotcha.
Yeah, well, high school was Parkland, and then up to UCF, Orlando, and then out to Full Sail's Winter Park, same thing. And then
right. Okay. And so when you went out west, did you already have something like planned and in mind, or were you just like, this is where I need to be to do the work I want to do?
It was the latter. I had no job when I came out here. Not much of a plan. I'd saved up some money, but I knew that like both things I was interested in, video games and writing, lay out here. So again, I was confident. I'd done enough writing that I had attracted a small agent, but still an agent. And I was confident enough to know that I would do something in writing, but I still wasn't sure that it was going to pan out in a full-time sense. So for me, like video games were going to be like, that was the safety job. And then writing was going to be what I did on the side. And oddly enough, even though I sent that story into Nintendo Power, I wasn't even thinking about game writing. I was just thinking about, like, I went to Full Sail for computer animation. I was thinking about being like a modeler.
Mm-hmm.
And it's good that didn't work out because I'm not a great like when you see what these guys can do, I'm sure you've got a lot of followers who are devs and people who go to the same schools. Like they like study musculature, they do these they're amazing. And I think I was okay, but I was never going to get the job over one of those guys. So I think I fell right into the right niche in video games.
Gotcha. Okay. And so when you got out there, was how quickly did you end up working with Insomniac? Was that one of the early things that you did there?
It took about 2 years. I was when I first went out to LA. First, I worked at UPS delivering packages.
Mm.
That was amazing. And then I worked at EA as a tester, thinking like, hey, that'd be a good way to just get my foot in the door. And it wasn't like EA. There was no real upward mobility there, and like they sequestered all the testers. I don't know what it's like now, but at the time, we weren't even allowed to like look at the production team. Like I remember they once had a party for the entire studio, and we all, whenever we wanted to take a break, they had to sneak us downstairs and out the back so the devs wouldn't have to look at us. So it was
Wow.
not, yeah, yeah, it was very dehumanizing.
Yikes.
But I did learn a lot about game production, and I got some real life experience, which was invaluable. It just as anybody who's ever been a tester can tell you, it's not a glamorous life.
That is true. And
Um,
I hope though that and I believe that we are making testers more of a part. They're devs as well, right? And integral to everything that's being done. So, man, to hear those stories, that's so painful. Like it should not be that even remotely that way.
yeah, it's rough. I will say that was not the case with Insomniac. Like when I went to Insomniac, and that was around 2005. I think around 2005 or no 6. Like immediately they were like, "Who knows Maya?" And I was like, I do." And they're like, "Okay, you're doing nav mesh and you're doing collision." So I was like, for Resistance, I was testing for half the day, and the other half the day I was like, you know, putting cubes around every asset that was created so that it would have collision marked around it, or
Yeah.
nav mesh so that enemies walk. So like at that studio was a little bit more accepting, because like you're right, like testing is it's such an important job. Like it's not lip service to say that they're really the last like line of defense for devs as far as catching the things that we miss. It could be even a typo that I have in one of my lines, or it can be like they're one of the most valuable, I think, assets we have.
Wow. Yeah. Like when you look at a game like, Cyberpunk coming out with as many bugs as it did, like that's the group that's there to help, find all that stuff. In a game that big, finding it all is almost impossible. Right. But you've
Yeah.
got to put so many resources into it.
Yeah, and I get with that game, it's funny. I'm sure they caught a lot of the stuff that we saw, and it just they were probably shot down or told, "Hey, it's not a progression stopper," even though a lot of them
Right.
probably were. Uh, but yeah, it's like you never want to ignore your QA when they're telling you there's a problem.
Man, known shippable is something we've had to use too many times.
Yeah, exactly. We'll get it in the patch. Famous last words.
Right.
We'll get it in the patch. You never get it in the patch.
No, at least not soon enough. That's for sure.
No. But game making is tough. I always used to joke that like from the outside, it feels like this super high tech, slick, well-oiled machine, but inside we're just like
Yeah.
like, it's just like everything's held together with duct tape. There's Excel spreadsheets for everything. People are just losing their minds. Like everyone's just pulling their hair out. Like it's a dumpster fire behind the curtain.
It sure is. That's something we don't talk enough about, actually, because it's and it's different everywhere and on every project. So you really never quite know what you're stepping into when you join a team for a project. It can be wild.
Very wild, yeah. And every studio is different. Every philosophy is different. But it's never easy. Like I've made lots of friends in lots of other studios, and I found that like some of my problems are unique, some of them aren't. Some of them are some studios are very story focused, some just aren't. Some are very art focused. It's never ever easy.
Yeah, no, it is definitely not easy.
Wow.
So I got to ask real quick. Tell me about the book on your desk.
Oh, my id book.
Yeah.
That okay. So you've heard of first editions, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this is the most important thing I own. This is actually a pre-first edition. This is Stephen King's signed, unproofed copy.
What?
Of it. So this is what like his handwritten notes are in these pages before it actually even went to print.
How do you even get a hold of something like that? Who'd you steal it from?
Sometimes, like I found that like especially when you work from home and it's just you writing like a golem in your cave 24 hours a day. And this was even before COVID. It's important to have things around you that that inspire you,
Yeah.
and that, I mean, it is a very important book for me, so it inspires me.
Wow.
So yeah, so I keep it right there. Also to show off.
Yeah, right. That is definitely something to show off. Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. It inspires me every day.
That's awesome. I love it.
Yeah.
All right, so you mentioned you were doing some testing stuff at Insomniac. Is that how you started there? Was doing testing stuff for them as well, or did that just happen to be something you did as part of what you were doing there?
That's what I was. That's what I was hired to do. Yeah, at first, yeah, and then I would do like they called it QA support, which was like half the day I do like design stuff, like the collision room. But it was I was hired as a tester. Yeah.
Okay. All right. All right. Before we move on, we just got a question in the chat. They want to know why that book is so important to you. Is that something you can discuss?
Yeah, I mean, like, so it wasn't the first Stephen King book that I ever read. That would be The Stand. When I was 12, I read The Stand, and that was like the first like adult book I ever owned. And I was so shitty at sports in summer camp that I would sit under a tree and just read The Stand. But so that like wet my whistle. But that when I read it shortly after, like it just, in terms of like mythology and character and just everything, it was just like this super inspiring epic to me I've certainly read things that have like sparked my imagination or inspired me before, but that's an important one. So there's no like personal direct connection to it. That I've never seen a clown hanging out in my sewers or anything, but just everything about that book just like inspires me. So except for one part towards the very end, where if you've read it, you know what I'm talking about. But everything else, perfect.
Interesting. I have not read it, so that's now I'll have to and figure that out.
Ask people in your chat if they've read the book, and I'll let them tell you.
Yeah, yeah. I am curious about that. If any in the chat have read it, and then, or you could definitely post in the comments later too, because I'll be curious to hear. Hopefully, without too many spoilers, if people were as affected by that moment as you were. That kids do the darndest things. All right, that's interesting. All right. So okay, so you go to Insomniac.
There's a sex thing involving kids.
Oh, all right. Yeah, that doesn't sound great. Okay, now I can see why that would be a problem.
Yeah.
Oh man. Okay, so we're at Insomniac. You're hired to do some testing, and I assume like your experience doing testing at EA kind of helped you get your foot in the door doing that way, right? Now, as you're doing this though, your hope is still writing, right? Like you're trying to get your foot in the door to start doing that in the game space, I assume, right?
No.
Okay.
No, I know. I wasn't even thinking about it. I wanted to like. So I was still thinking about TV and feature writing when I came out here.
Okay.
And I thought maybe I'd be a modeler or something in games. I just wasn't even thinking about game writing. Again, I never heard of anybody doing it. So it wasn't top of mind. So I had an agent, and I was writing feature scripts, and those were going around town. But then, like, if I had a meeting, I would tell my lead at Insomniac or whoever, oh, I got a dentist appointment or whatever, I gotta go. Sorry, Ted, if you're listening. But the weirdest thing happened. So testing, as you know, like it's a largely contract position, right? It's you come in, you test for the game, and as soon as it ships, you move on, right? It's and then maybe they hire you back the next time they ramp up. There was this guy named Adam who was writing on Ratchet before me, and I don't know exactly what happened, but it wasn't really working out between him and Insomniac, so they were going to part ways. And he had somehow read my stuff, like stuff just gets around town. And he was like, hey, I'm sorry it didn't work out with me, but that guy is a good writer. You should have him in. And the problem was I had already been laid off, and I was on my last day. And I remember like I was packing up my cubicle, and I sent out my email to the team saying, thank you, goodbye, it's been great. And before I shut down my computer, boom, get an email from HR saying, "Hey, do you want to come in and interview with Brian Hastings for the role of a writer?" And I was like, "Yeah, absolutely." So I spent that weekend unemployed. Had to try to like figure out how I was going to get back to New Jersey because my parents moved back to New Jersey, and I had no plan. I think I had $200 left in my bank account, so I didn't even know how I was going to afford to move back. And I interviewed on Monday, got the job on Wednesday, and started the following week. So I went from like tester to writer, super quickly with one sort of week gap time between the two. It was a completely random thing.
Man, that's incredible. So,
Yeah.
so the guy who read your stuff, you didn't give it to him. He just came across it. Had he mentioned it to you before, like that he'd read it, or? Wow. That's that's insane. That is unbelievable. So
it's super random. And he now, or at least last time I heard from him, he was a teacher over at the New York Film Academy here in Burbank. And every time he would call me in to talk to his class, I would have to say yes. It's like, how do you say no to somebody who he got laid off. He had no reason to try to recommend anybody to his position. I wouldn't have, I don't think. He was a nicer guy than me about it. And he sort of helped get my career started. So yeah, I was like, yeah, sure, I'll come talk to your kids anytime, man.
Yeah, that's incredible, man.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's a really weird path to game writing.
Yeah. So what was your first day as a writer like? What was the project you were brought on to work on?
Oh, it was overwhelming. It was Ratchet Clank Tools Destruction. And I was brought in halfway through. So that meant having never written a game before, having only ever sort of like, been in my apartment writing whatever I want, where there's no budgetary concerns, there's no criteria, you just write whatever you like. And I was dropped into a production already in progress where they already had the characters built, they had the game set, the levels sort of stepped out, they had all the models, they had all the animations, they had everything set. So I had to like paint a story over what was already there.
Oh.
And like use bits of scenes that were already shot or that were already animated. It was terrifying. It was terrifying.
How many writers were on the team?
Just me.
What?
Well, me and Brian Hastings.
What?
Yeah. For years at Insomniac, actually. So like Tools Destruction was me and Brian Hastings, and then towards the end of the production, Brian stepped off to sort of take a 1,000-foot view of it so I could finish it up. And then, but for years at Insomniac, it was just me. And once they opened the North Carolina studio, it was still me. So like they brought on John Paquette to do Resistance 3, and that was sort of off in its own sort of area of the studio. But I was doing, I was finishing up Resistance 2 while also doing Ratchet Clank: A Crack in Time, while also doing what became Fuse later on. So like I remember there were periods where I had Ratchet and Clank open on one monitor and Resistance: Fall of Man or Overstrike / Fuse on the other monitor, just going back and forth and writing, while also flying out to North Carolina to work with Durham on their games. And I was also doing casting, voice direction, script coordination, and localization.
Wow. All right.
Yeah.
So did you get the salary of 5 people or?
No, I did not, Jameson.
Man,
I did not.
Oh, that reminds me. I talked to Sean McCabe a couple days ago and told him you were coming on the show. And he said that sometime we're going to have you guys on together so that you can tell some war stories from those days.
We talked about me coming on. I love Sean, and Sean was like, I think he understood that I was doing. He's one of the only people who understood that I was doing the work of literally 10 people, and he talked me off several ledges because I was living in constant crunch for 5 years.
Wow. Yeah, I'm sure.
So he was probably one of the best leads I ever had. And I'm saying that partially because I know he's listening right now, but also because it's true.
Those are both okay reasons. Yeah.
Yeah, he's a good dude, and it was a very, very stressful job, and I'm sure I was. I'm sure it showed.
I don't know how it could not. That is a lot in an industry that's already difficult to do, a moderate amount of work. Like imagine doing that much stuff and having your hands in so many pots just sounds. I don't know how you did it. Honestly, I don't know how you did it. You're a
Yeah,
superhero.
thank you. I don't know the superhero part, but it's. I mean, it was stressful, and I remember there were a lot of people who were also like were old school, so they didn't think that story belonged in the game. So like I would write stuff and they just flat out wouldn't do it, and I was like, oh man, come on, just buddy, just work as part of the team. And
Wow.
yeah, it was a stressful job. But I will also say like I find that like game writing, period, whether it's in a situation like mine or it's in just like a normal or typical setup where you've got like several writers, I think writing for games is the best boot camp for an aspiring writer that you can have because it teaches you not to be precious about anything.
Mm.
It's like when you're a writer on the outside and you're just sort of like trying to make your mark, it's very easy to get sort of possessive over your story, like, oh, this has to be done a certain way, or like this is a certain vision, whatever. But like you could do everything right in a video game in terms of the narrative, come up with this amazing twist that you've just perfectly teed up, and then just have a designer walk over to you one day and say, hey man, that level was cut. Sorry,
Ooh, yeah,
that's
that's
it.
rough, man.
You
And
know?
cutting stuff in production, thinking about it specifically from like the narrative aspects, is like where do you fit that stuff in, right? Like you're literally removing part of the story like right out of the middle, and this is something that I've had to deal with a lot. And it has to be a part of the consideration, right? It's a major. You just can't have, oh, we just left out this little bit of the story in the middle.
Sometimes people, if they haven't written a lot or they're judging writing based on watching movies instead of actually constructing stories, they'll think that it can be accomplished in other ways. And there are other things that you can do, like if I don't have any more animation minutes at that point to animate a new scene, well, I'll look at just doing it as in-game VO someplace. And if there's no space for that, I'll say, shit, I guess I'll have to make it like an Intel doc or whatever. So like there are ways to do it, but sometimes, especially if it's a very important sequence, that's when you also have to like kind of go to battle and like set a meeting and be like, here's why this is really, really important. And you have to convince people who have no time in the schedule, who have like no resources, like to try to find a way to make them. And sometimes you win and sometimes you lose. Like there's still things in like, A Crack in Time, which I think out of all the Ratchet games I've written, that's probably the one people talk about most, that I wish stayed, that just didn't, like what happened to Orvis? Like Orvis was supposed to be in the final shot of the game when I wrote the script, sort of seeing Ratchet fly off into space, and we just could not get the budget to do that anymore. So now Orvis's status is sort of like TBD.
Mm.
So it's some people say it's not a big deal, some people say it is. It's there's no right or wrong answer to it, but certain things like that, are difficult in the moment. You learn to move on, but in the moment they're difficult.
Yeah, I mean, correlates. I'm used to design ideas that I can't get married to, right? Because you never know. You got to be willing to cut things, right? Because for the good of the game. But it's different when someone tells you something's being cut, right? And now you've got to now go back and accommodate for that, and that's especially doing that stuff when things are kind of still a bit organic, right? When you're in development, maybe levels need to be changed a bit for tuning and timing and all of that stuff. And you have to, at least I assume there's a times where you're like just waiting for another, shoe to drop, right? Like what's the next adjustment I'm going to have to make to this thing that I've already been adjusting?
Every day, every day. I've always sort of described game writing as building a raft of twigs and twine and then just holding on to it as it goes over a waterfall and designers snip the twine. It's a constant,
Oh,
and that's not even me blaming. Like designers are rolling with the punches just as much as we are, right? But it's like there are 1,000 moving components in game development, and keeping them all moving at a steady clip is really, really difficult.
yeah.
So sometimes just something will just happen. A designer will have to roll with it, and then that means I'll have to roll with it, and then animation has to roll with it. So I was always in a state of, okay, what do we have to change now? And that's why like I would try to design things to be as modular as possible, so that if we had to take it out, like we can come up with something else, or we can just sort of remove it and it won't be too big of a deal. It was, it was always difficult, but when it worked, it was rewarding.
Yeah.
Like
Well, I mean,
writing games is rewarding.
and I would say that for the most part, it ended up working for you, right? The stuff that you did is great, right? Like, and it's the games ended up being good, a lot of fun. So,
For the most part, yeah. I mean, I think Fuse was a big miss, but I'd also rewritten Fuse. Oh God, 12 times, and I ended up getting so stressed on that one that I remember I took my first vacation in something like 6 years, not 6 years, but it was close. It was like 5 years. And my first day of vacation, and this is after I've been told to take out all the humor, take out all the jokes. People didn't want jokes, whatever. So I was like, okay. And then I got a call from Ted saying like, hey, like, we need you back in the office. People miss the jokes, so I need you to write 400 lines of comedy in the next week because our localization deadline is coming up. And I crashed my car.
Wait, did you crash it because of this call?
I had a panic attack and crashed my car.
Oh my God.
Not bad. Not bad. I hit somebody in front of me that it was like more of like a fender bender, but like I had to pull over to the side of the road and get my bearings and all that kind of stuff. And that's when I knew it was time for me to move on.
Wow.
It was just stressful,
Man, I have so many thoughts. Like that's
Well,
so I mean
that's not unique to that was everywhere. That was really no one's, just a lot of stress, a lot of pressure.
Yeah. And you said this was like 5 years in. What year was this roughly?
By that time, it must have been about 2012.
Okay.
End of 2012, towards
Okay.
Christmas.
Gotcha.
Man. I
Man.
stayed for Ratchet and Clank into Nexus, which went to the summertime, and then after that, it was time for me to move on.
Wow. So
at least as an in-house employee.
Right. So okay, so yeah, let's talk about that a little bit. So now you decided. I assume you helped finish up that product. No, yes. Like how much of an impact was this moment for you? I guess is the first question.
I mean, I did it, but I told them, and I don't think they would even disagree with this. Like Fuse was not Insomniac's greatest moment or game, but like there comes a time where if you've rewritten something, not just in terms of like the plot, but the tone over and over again, eventually you start to see the painting behind the painting. You can only really change the identity of something so much before it just looks like what we call out here a feathered fish. You don't really know what it's trying to be. Is it trying to be a comedy? Is it trying to be an action comedy? Is it whatever? And I think they didn't know what they wanted to be. So like I had one idea. My very first idea for the story, I still loved it, but just if people weren't seeing it or they thought they looked at the trends and they said, oh, this different style game is doing better, we got to do that, then it's what you got to do. But I think writing 400 lines of comedy is not going to turn it into a comedy. It's going to turn it into like a one-liner sort of show, right? Where it's just quippy,
Right.
rather than that being its identity. And I told them that, and I'm sure they knew it, but they were rolling with the punches just like I was, right? I feel it wasn't that they didn't know what they were doing. They did. They were handed this edict down from the publisher, and they were trying to do the best that we could. And then I had to do the best that we could. But by that time, I was just super stressed and overworked, and I had never taken a vacation, and I just ended up, I felt my heart beating so hard it was like moving my shirt, and then I crashed my car.
You dealt with that longer than most. I like that. I can't imagine that. So, man, that's I'm not surprised that it ended that way. I guess I should say.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah.
So what was your first thought after this? Like, you knew that you needed to do something different. Was your first thought you wanted to pursue like something on your own? Were you looking for another gig? Like, what were your thoughts then?
Well, I'd always been writing features even throughout that. So like I would work until sometimes like 10 or 11, come home and then crack the laptop again and write for another couple hours. And I knew that was not sustainable. And I knew also that like, as much as I love Ratchet and Clank and for the right project at the right time or whatever, like I would absolutely do something else with those characters because I think Insomniac created this amazing world. I also knew that my IMDb page was nothing but Ratchet and Clank, and I never met a 50 or 60-year-old writer, but as a 30-year-old writer at the time, I was just sort of like, well, am I going to be am I going to age out and have never done anything other than, this one franchise and Fuse?
Mm-hmm.
And I was worried, obviously, about my health because it was affecting my anxiety. It was affecting, obviously, like just my sleep patterns. It was affecting my social life because, like, I lived at the office. When I wasn't at the office, I was writing, usually for Insomniac at home. Like, everyone talks about, I don't know if you ever played a Crack in Time, but there's space radio where you can listen to 4 channels worth of
Mm-hmm.
radio stations and all these commercials and stuff. I wrote all of those at home. I wasn't paid to write those. I wrote hours upon hours upon hours of fake commercials and DJ lines or whatever from my house because I believed in that feature and I wanted it to be cool.
Wow.
So I did that so many times that I was just like, oh wow, I've literally given everything I can to this job, and I don't know if it's healthy for me to stay. And I don't know if this is where I'm going to do my best work because
Mm.
I hadn't yet worked like with movies. Movies have just as much, if not more, problems. But like with any studio, the game, not that there should be a division between the game and the story, but the game has to be like the gameplay has to be looked at first, right? Story is never going to trump what gameplay can do.
Yeah.
Uh, and I get that. That is how that medium works. I wanted to see like, hey, what happens when I just write for the sake of story?
Okay. And so what was kind of the first thing you ended up working on after that point?
Well, one of the movies I was writing at the time was this action comedy called One Night on the Hudson, and we had attached Charlie Day and Jason Sudeikis and Seth Gordon, who had all worked together on Horrible Bosses. So we used to joke that we were making like we were one Jason Bateman short of a Horrible Bosses reunion movie. That's what we always used to say. And when that sold, I was like, it was close to the summertime of 2013, and I was like, oh, okay, well, if one sale doesn't mean that that's a trend, so I'm not gonna leave just yet. But I was looking for like the writing on the wall, saying, okay, now you have the opportunity. Now's a good time to leave. And as soon as I thought that, this was literally within like 2 weeks or 3 weeks of that sale, I sold 2 more things.
Oh, wow.
I sold this action movie called Thick as Thieves to New Line, and then I booked what they call an OWA, an original writing assignment or an open writing assignment with Disney for Gargoyles, but not the cartoon. It was like just a separate, similar idea. So I had 3 movies that would let me sort of write the whole thing start to finish. The pay was stupid great, and it offered me the opportunity to make my own hours, catch up on some sleep, and then just try to just write for the sake of writing. So at that point, I was like, okay, it's time to go. So I finished Into the Nexus. I wrote that script in, I think it was like 2 weeks, and then I told them that if you guys ever want to keep working on Ratchet again, like I'm happy to do it on a contract basis. And I ended up doing that for them on the game that was based on the movie based on the game, because I wrote the first draft of the movie even though they didn't use it. So that was very weird. But that was how I went back to something as like a contract writer, and I worked from home.
Okay. So one of the things I've been curious about,
it happened.
how does the movie industry view video game writing experience? Like, was there a lot of you being like, all right, let me tell you what it's like over there, why it was still valuable?
They were very interested in it. Every time like I would go on what they call a general, they would say, hey, how are games made? Because it is different. As you've seen, it's like we are essentially laying down the tracks as the train is coming through because everybody starts at once. Whereas with movies, like you'll develop something for years and go through 10, 15 writers before finally anything happens, if at all. So they were interested in the process. I don't know if they're super impressed by video game stories overall, except for your really big ones like your BioShocks and your Uncharted's, and I think the IP is more valuable to them than than the actual storytelling is in my experience. They don't like look down their noses at it, but I think we've seen a lot of shitty game writing, so it's understandable that they're like, oh, this is interesting, but this is not Goodfellas.
Interesting. Well, at least it wasn't like a non-starter, right? Like, this guy's only done games. Like, we don't.
Not at all. If anything, like people were like really, really interested in finding out about it. They'd call me in and like there were several times that I have to be like, should we talk about features now? Because they just wanted to hear like how we do game writing. So no, I never felt like that they refused to even see me because of it.
Gotcha. Well, that's good. I'm always curious about things like that. Like our industries are so similar, right? But you always wonder, like, how does one kind of perceive the other? And, because we've brought in like a lot of effects guys from movies into games I've worked on, and there's a language barrier there at first. It takes some time to like get them to understand what the tools are like, and things are in real time now, and those kind of things are different.
Yeah, I don't think either side understands the other, and there's sometimes this massive inferiority complex because movies are sort of jealous that games make more, and games get jealous that movies are celebrated more, in terms of their quality level. So like, you'll always get somebody who just tries to sort of flex out of insecurity towards the other side. But like, I remember we'd have guys who are like involved in movies, like come in to do talks for us, and I knew movies, but I'm not going to raise my hand and start arguing with everything that they say. But they would just be like, you guys have to start using the lexicon of movies, because there's this thing called the hero's journey and Save the Cat and all this other shit. And we're like, yeah, dude, we know this stuff. Like, there's some really weird stuff that happens, but overall story is story, and it's the same tools they use to make it creatively anyway in movies as you do in games. There's different red tape, there's different hurdles, but what's good for character in a video game is good for character in a movie.
So we got a question in the chat asking what Save the Cat means.
Save the Cat is it's a book I mock a lot, but not because the book is bad. The book is good, but Save the Cat is a screenwriting book, and people take it too seriously as like a Bible for storytelling. Like, it's basically just like, hey, you have a problem with your script, here are the things that you can do to fix it. But a lot like this book called Story by McKee, the knowledge contained inside is good, but if you aren't a full-time storyteller, you're just getting started, it's easy to think that is the template for storytelling, when there is no template. In fact, in story, one of the first things Robert McKee says is that storytelling is form, not formula. So he's like, here's all these rules, but feel free to break them, because at the end of the day, your story just needs to move people. How you get there is how you get there. So when people start to like ask me like, oh, when's the hero return from the innermost cave with his elixir and this and that, you're just like, all right, buddy, like let's talk about this story. Let's talk about like, we don't need to like draw the parallels to Save the Cat or to Campbell's hero's journey or anything like that. It's like let's just do this. So people get too hung up on these rule books, I think.
Gotcha. Yeah, those kind of things are great resources, right? But not always the law, right?
There is no law.
Yeah.
There is no law. Just like when I was starting out, people were like, with screenwriting, your inciting incident has to happen on page 10. Not 11, not 9, but 10. And that's silly. Don't use different font. Don't put anything on your title page. All this stuff is complete bullshit. Just like tell a good story. Don't get stuck up your own ass, and you're good.
Yeah. That's funny.
Yeah.
All right, so we're right about the halfway point here. So I've got a few questions that I call the dev round that I want to ask you. All right?
Dev round. Okay, hit me.
The first one is, what is your favorite game of all time and why?
Oof. Okay. I would probably have to say Ocarina of Time.
Okay.
And that is not a unusual. I wish I had something like obscure and indie and cool that would earn me points. But like Ocarina of Time, when I was in college, I played a little bit late in college, and it was the first thing that felt like a living, breathing world, I guess. Lots of secrets for me to explore. What's behind that waterfall? What happens when I put on when I play this song? Like I think it really sort of. That's the first game that felt like an event to me, even though I've been playing for a long time. So Ocarina of Time, hands down.
All right. All right, next. When did you first feel like you had made it?
Okay, I wrote a script called Past Midnight that I'm still like, I still have it now. I'm working on it, but I sold it once before, and the producers that we got on it were the Russo brothers, and this is like right when the Russo brothers like broke, and like I sent it to them, or my agent sent it to them as a sample, and we didn't expect them to want to do anything with it because they were the Russo brothers and they were already doing like they were, I think, just about to start Civil War, and I got a call from them like 2 days after I sent it saying, "Hey, come in here and let's talk about this movie." And we ended up like attaching Keanu Reeves, and we optioned it to Netflix, and like they were happy. Like I stepped away because the director wanted to do his own thing, and then it just the project reverted back to me. So now we were getting it back off the ground. But like to get people of that caliber like calling you and engaging you off something that, you know, no one believed in but me. I had to write it on spec rather than try to pitch it because it was just this really weird idea. That was when I was like, okay, my writing is not only selling, but it's getting noticed by artists that I truly admire. Like when you're like, I was on a conference call. I remember, I don't think I've ever told this story either, but I was on a conference call with Joe and Anthony Russo and Keanu Reeves. And you know how like when you do those 1-800 calls when you drop into like a conference call thing, it says, you know, say your name at the tone and like announces you. I was I was the second person on the call. And it goes, "You are now in a room with," and I just hear him go, "Keanu." It was the coolest thing in the world. And I was talking to the guy, and the Russos are on the phone too, and they're like, "Sorry, we're late. You know, we're shooting Endgame right now. It's back to back." And Keanu's like, "Yeah, when I was doing the Matrix back to back, it was like 230 days straight." And I'm like, "I know both those movies. What am I doing on this phone call?" Anthony Mackie dropped in. He got the wrong number and he popped into our call. Like, what the fuck is Falcon doing in this call? Like,
What?
and like, yeah, and that's when I was like, okay, like I'm officially like on a call with two producers and directors who I really, really admire. A guy who's like one of my favorite actors of all time, and we're just sitting here talking shop. I mean, I'm listening, absorbing, trying not to show them my noob card,
Right.
but they're talking shop, and I get to be part of it. And that's when I felt like I made it.
That's fantastic. I really
Yeah,
like that.
it's a long way of getting around to this. That's why.
No, that's great. I love it.
Yeah.
All right, so I know your story for this is a little unique to you, but I'm curious, what advice would you give to someone who's trying to get their first job as a writer?
First, okay, well, so there's not, even for other game writers that I've spoken with, there's not a ton of like there's not like a concrete road in, right? And there's not like a ton of jobs that are just blasted everywhere. I think it's more so than when I started out, but it's still kind of this bizarre thing. So what I would say is like the really lame way I used to put it is right to learn, not to earn, but it's true. Like if you're just worried about like, hey, if I'm going to write this, I'm going to sell it for $1 billion, and then I'm going to be set, you're never going to get there. But if you just keep writing and just working on your craft, getting feedback from people, don't try hard to like network and like scroll your like wriggle your way in at like parties or like hitting people up on Twitter. Just like get the stuff out there. And with games, I would say definitely get some sort of education in production, because a designer is not going to want to work with somebody who has no idea what they're up against, right? No one wants to work with that ivory tower Hollywood writer who will just like write a script and chuck it at a designer and say, make this so. Like, understand animation, understand that a crowd scene that you're writing
Mm.
is a year's worth of work for somebody. An explosion is a month of work for somebody. Like, learn about the other parts of the process so that you can be dropped in and you can work with those guys, because they are not there to just bring your story to life. They got shit to do. They've got levels to make. They've got, so you have to be able to sort of work in conjunction with them instead of just like writing whatever you love. So definitely get like, even like Full Sail or Savannah School of Art and Design, like any place where like you'll get any kind of like digital art or digital or like digital medium background, I think is important.
Nice. So
and then just keep getting your stuff out there, everyone will read it.
so getting your stuff out there, what kind of, like, I'm completely oblivious to that. When you say that, what does that mean? Getting your stuff out there? I'm sure there's a lot more avenues now than when you first started writing.
Oh yeah, I mean it's completely democratized now. You can shoot your own shorts and put them up on YouTube or Vimeo. You can publish your own blogs. Like there's a million ways to get stuff out there. Uh, and the fact is, like even with like self-publishing becoming a thing, uh, I always think about that guy. I'm blanking on him. Andy Weir, I think, who wrote The Martian. He
Oh,
kept writing it sort of as a blog, and it became a book, and then he ended up like self-publishing it then, and then just became this phenomenon. So
oh
uh,
man.
I think that just self-publishing, putting it online, like entering competitions. Some people don't. Some people like don't like competitions because they're like, oh, it's not going to get you anywhere. It was different for me, but for a weird reason. Like I placed third in this screenwriting competition, and one of the guys who was a judge somehow knew my sister and called her and then tracked me down and helped me get my agent. So I
What?
actually had luck with, yeah, super random. But that doesn't happen enough for me to say that's the way it'll work. But you're still getting your stuff out there. You're getting feedback from people. You're working on your writing, and then chasing the. So when you do find those opportunities, because people do post online about jobs now. They didn't when I was younger, but now on Twitter you can type in game writer and a dozen things will pop up. You'll have plenty of material to send them, and you'll have the experience iterating on stuff that'll tee you up for success. Because if you've never worked in a group before, if you've never had to deal with notes before, and you get dropped in onto a writing team of a game, I can almost guarantee you're not going to survive. I can almost guarantee it. You need that. You need experience with game making. You need experience with iteration, and you need to be humbled a little bit because every writer starts off thinking it's about what's in their head.
Mm. Yeah, it's a small part of it. Uh-oh. Did I lose you?
No, I'm here.
Okay, cool. It froze there for a second. All right. So
Yeah.
you said something a little bit ago that I was curious about. When you're writing for a game, what is the approach you take between like cinematic stuff and in-game stuff? Is there a different process that you have, or at least a different considerations you have to have?
I'm trying to remember. Like there were, if it was something that was like effects heavy, we wanted to be able to control depth of field or the way that we rendered it, or if it was if we wanted to take place in two different locations, but the other location wasn't someplace in the level,
Mm-hmm.
then we would do a full motion video or like a rendered cinematic. But if it was something that we could do real time, we would, because it was cheaper and easier, and with Insomniac they still looked amazing. So we found that it worked for us. I don't know. We were shifting more towards real time when I left, but I don't know what their philosophy is now. But I think with most game companies, it's about what the engine can do.
Yeah. We've got a new one coming out on PS5 like in a few days, right? So I'm curious to see what they do with that. It looks amazing so
Oh
far.
yeah, the new Ratchet. Yeah, yeah. I forget. I think that's coming out. Yeah, June. I think.
Yeah, it's like real soon.
Yeah, yeah. And it looks. I saw the trailer last week. It looks beautiful.
Yeah, it does. Man,
Yeah.
I'm,
It's
I'm
always great
waiting.
about that stuff. Like, it always look
Yeah, I'm waiting to see something that like really shows off the PS5. And Returnal, I don't know if you've seen that yet. Returnal is pretty great. I've been playing it for a few days, but I think something like this new Ratchet game is going to be really interesting with the way they're loading things. Like I'm really curious to analyze that a bit.
yeah, it's funny. Like I remember when we did Tools Destruction, we got these like Pixar comparisons, right? And now I look at it, and I'm like, that's also it's even more beautiful, and it's running at like 60 frames a second, and it's it's just beautiful. I On a long enough timeline, I wonder if graphics in general are going to move the needle with gamers anymore. It's getting so it's getting like we're really hitting that point right now in games where it seems like though the gains are getting smaller and smaller. It's they've got what they call global illumination now, real time global illumination, and real time depth of field, and like they're adding bells and whistles, but there hasn't been like this crazy increase in fidelity. I don't think from PS4 to PS5.
Yeah.
It seems like it's all. we're finally getting to the point where it's now going to be like depth over breadth kind of thing.
Yeah, like some of the main things I'm seeing is, obviously the ray tracing type stuff, but I think what seems to be kind of the new trend in line with what you're talking about is, the refresh rate and the frames per second being higher, being something that people are starting to care more about. So on consoles, we're still, at the highest resolution, 60 is about all you can get, but I saw the PS5 is now doing 120 at for stuff that's low, like 1920. So I think we'll start to see people caring a little bit more about that kind of thing, because it's going to look great and run really quickly. Like I think that's kind of our next plateau. Because you're right. Like the visual fidelity is getting to a point where you can't tell that much of a difference between them. At least I can't, and so it doesn't seem to matter so much.
Yeah, and remember, like you're also a gaming professional, right? So you know what screen tearing is, you know what anti-aliasing is, you know what Z depth is, all this stuff.
Right.
But like most people, they don't know. They just know it looks good. They're like, yeah, we like it. So it's like, it feels like the games are going to be more about reducing load time, right? So it just is like a seamless experience.
Yeah.
The size of the game, like, are you going to, people are going to keep expecting the Mass Effect size or huge sweeping experiences, and I think that's where we're going to see big shifts. But I also think like VR might I don't know if it'll ever surpass traditional gaming, probably not, but like it's a change that I think people can say, okay, this will keep getting better now, but just it's not going to be the same as it was when we were kids, where we saw something go from 8-bit to like 64-bit or 16-bit, and we're like, whoa,
Yeah,
like, so,
major change, and then the amount of colors and
yeah.
oh
Like back
man,
then, it was like when there was a new console, it was a thing,
yeah,
right? And now we're just like, well, you've got anti-aliasing issues going on because you get so spoiled. You're screen tearing. I had my frame rate counter up, and you dropped from 60 to 59. I saw it.
yeah. You had to have a counter to notice.
Yeah, yeah.
Man. All right, I got a fun question for you now. Someone asked me this on the stream a few weeks ago, and I was like, I got to start using this. So, if you were born in 1870, what kind of career do you think you would have? Would you still be a writer?
I think so.
Yeah.
My job still existed in 1870.
Yours has
So
always existed.
Yeah, so I mean, maybe I'd be there with a little quill and a lantern light, but
And I can totally see you doing that.
yeah, I'm gonna go with writer. Final answer.
Yeah.
Thing is, like, I suck at tying ties. I'm terrible at math. There's not much else I can do.
Well, you're lucky. Like there was definitely no video games in 1870, so I think about that one pretty often. I wonder what I would have done.
You don't know?
I've when I was asked originally, I felt like it would be something. Actually, I don't even remember what I said now, but something in like architecture or some kind of like still. I love like level building and creating experiences, so I could see myself maybe being some kind of an architect or something along those lines. Something that people could experience. But man, I don't know. I really don't know. It's kind of wild to think about because like literally what I do is only available in my generation at this point. So going forward, sure, but it's who knows? Maybe I would have stayed in banking. Yeah.
Oh God. Thank God you weren't born in 1870 then.
Right.
Yeah, whatever I'd be doing, I'm sure I wouldn't be happy.
Well, there's that. Yeah. 1870 sounds like a terrible time to live.
Terrible time. Yeah. No. No, I'm glad my job existed back then, so I'd probably be doing the same.
That's good. That's good. All right. So where did we leave off? You had recently left and you were now doing your own thing. You had 3 projects going. So
Insomniac,
yeah. And so how long was it before you did anything with games again? Like you said, you had the opportunity to maybe do some contract stuff. Like what was that kind of next few years like on the game side?
It was sporadic. I think the following fall, I was asked to help with the Ratchet and Clank adaptation, basically the reimagined, the reboot game.
Mm-hmm.
And I wrote probably like, I don't know, like I wrote a bunch. They also used some scenes from the movie, and they also had another writer sort of go in towards the end and do sort of like the patchwork. But I did some writing on that. And then I helped Cliff Blazinski with a trailer for his Lawbreakers game, and what else did I do? I would do like little things here, here and there. But after I finished the Ratchet and Clank contract job, which was like the first, that was like a full contract gig. There's probably a couple of years until last year, I guess, when my buddy Ken Levine, who's now over at Ghost Story, he's now over. He's always been there, just had a different name. He asked me to help him a little bit out, a little bit with his new game. So I've been like consulting and helping him do like a little bit of writing on that. But I think between the two, not so much. I've been fortunate to have a lot of like feature stuff in motion.
That's cool. So you want to tell us
Every once in a while I miss it though.
Oh, do you? I was going to ask that. So you, do you think about doing more game stuff? Is that still something you care about doing? Or are you like fully moved into feature stuff now?
Look, I like the process and features a little bit better, but with games, there's something cool about getting to create or help create a world, right? It's not linear. You can walk up to an NPC, and based on all the stuff that you've done in that game, that NPC will react to what you've done. And there's something really cool about that you're never going to get out of a movie. So I never say like never to games. I just think the movie stuff has been going pretty consistently right now, and I'm knocking on wood as I say it. And the process I definitely like a little bit better. Like I like writing in my cave like a golem, and I like not having to worry about 25 different departments when we're at the stage of just worrying about making the story as good as it can be. But it's also tough in that I've sold a whole bunch of stuff since I've been out here, and those things are either still in development and sort of like taking the long way there, or they've tanked because somebody signed on and then walked away, or the exec on the project moved to a different studio and the new exec just wanted to wipe the slate. Like, this town buys a ton of scripts but rarely makes anything. So there's also something nice about video games where if you're working on it, it's
happening.
It's going on. Yeah.
So give me a little insight into kind of how, I mean, as general as you can be with something like this. So let's say you sign on to work on something, and is there like hey, we're signing you to this, here's a contract for this time? Or is it like, I guess I'm kind of wondering like how money works in that way. Like, imagine something, you work on it for a year, you think you're done, you hand it off, or it got shelved for a while. Like, how does all of that work monetarily?
Well, I mean, there are small differences that happen with every contract, depending on if it's your idea that you wrote a spec script for, if it's a pitch that you're selling them the idea, and then you're going to go write it. If you are a writer coming in after the fact and you're rewriting somebody else, and so that will change in the process in a bunch of ways. But typically, the common sort of denominator is that you'll get paid a certain amount, what they call commencement, to start.
Okay.
Whether it be a rewrite or you've sold the pitch and now you're going to script. And you get another fee for when you submit it. And there is like some contractual deadlines there too, although most people don't enforce them. But if you can't take too much of it, you can't take like 4 years on a script. They'll get pissed. But then there's some optional steps where they'll say, hey, like, we love what you're doing, we're going to pull the trigger on this optional step. And if that's in the contract, they've got that studio has the authority to say, hey, we want you for this, and you are now working for us on this optional step. And there's exclusivity, and there's other things that they can pay for too. But it's like, but usually it's less about like hours that you put into it, and more about like draft 1, draft 2. Okay, now optional step, optional polish, etc. And you'll get paid every step along the way.
Okay. And how do you, as a writer, judge how many things you should kind of have that you're working on at once?
Oh, that's something every writer finds out the hard way. Because it's funny, you never know what's going to hit and what's not, right? So a lot of what we do is spinning plates. Like on my dry erase board right now, I've got 13 things.
Oh, wow.
and yeah, and 7 of them are going. Like 7 of them are look like they might actually be like set up and things that I need to do, which is a lot. I'm actually kind of terrified about it. I'm trying to like. There's a chance I could finish 2 before the others go, which I'm hoping I can do. But and by the way, champagne problem. If any other writers in town are listening and getting angry, I get it. But I think there are some writers who can't plate spin at all. They have to work on one thing. It's all their focus. Me, I like working on vastly different things, and my thing, like everything I work on, is really different. And I just sort of know, hey, like I've reached my limit here. I have to slow down, kind of thing. But it's tough because if you say no to, I feel like every writer should say no to something, but I feel like writers are afraid to pass because they're afraid they're never going to get another offer again, which is not the right way to look at it. So you have to fight that voice in your head that says you have to say yes, because you need to be able to like give 100% on every single one of those projects, 100%. And I've talked to a lot of writers who will say things like, "Oh, I'll just take my time because I need to be inspired, and you can't rush inspiration, you can't force it." Fuck yes, you can force it. Like that's your job. It's to develop it like a muscle and get the story told. So I think if you can't do that, you're also going to struggle with writing multiple things. But I think Insomniac prepared me. Those days where I told you where I'm writing Ratchet on one screen and Resistance on another, you learn to say, okay, I need to do 7 pages a day on this project, 10 a day on this one. Like you figure it out and you self-organize,
Interesting. So it definitely takes a lot of, you have to have a little project manager inside of you, right, to do it well, sounds like.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, and there's a lot of writers who just don't have that. And I didn't at first either. Like this is something that I had to like teach myself. But I was talking to I don't think he'd care if I said his name, but I won't just in case. But he's the writer over at Ubisoft and a good friend of mine who wasn't super, like he would tell me that he would struggle when he was in a room by himself cracking a story. Like he needed to have everybody with him in order to like get everything done. I've been fortunate in that I was never like that. I like collaboration. I like working with people. But if you tell me, hey, go off and come up with a story and come back, like I'll do that. So I think like learning those skills will help out a lot. It's just about, like I said, not getting your head up your own ass and not saying like, oh, I'm gonna take 10 years to write this script. It's like, well, you take those 10 years, guys like me are gonna come in and take your other jobs because there's the romanticized view of writing and there's the real side of writing. And I have no illusions about sitting on some cobblestone street in Paris, just writing my opus for whatever amount of years that I want to take. Like it's just not how. No one's going to want to work with you. So I'm fast.
well, like it seems like what you're mentioning before is you're not paid for time, right? So the quicker you can deliver, the more money you're going to make, right? Because you could do something different. If you're taking 10 years to write this one thing, you still just got that upfront payment and maybe some things along the way, right?
Absolutely. And by the way, when I say fast, I don't mean like rush it and make it garbage.
Right.
Like, you have to deliver well. But yeah, absolutely. If you can be the guy who delivers a script in 2 months instead of 3, and that script is good, they will remember that and they will call you in for other stuff. So it's definitely learning. I talk to writers out here all the time where it's just like, oh, I've been working on my script for 4 years, and they say like that's a good thing, and I hear that and I go, well, you just don't know the story that you want to tell, then, man. Like if it's taking you 4 years, that doesn't sound good. They think it sounds good, but it sounds like you're just not serious about doing this as a profession.
Yeah, I would say, what's taking so long? Like,
yeah. Like when I have an idea for a story, like I throw myself into it. I get excited about it. I start like beating it out on cards, and then I'm writing. If I decide to write on Spec, I'm writing it within a couple weeks. It's there's no reason to take 4 years or 5 years or longer on a script.
What is your, if you can talk about this at all, what is your like initial process for something? Like I'm a mind map person. I like to pull up a mind map software, throw ideas in, move them around, move them under topics, that kind of thing. That's kind of how I start to frame what I'm thinking about. What kind of process do you use when you're in that initial phase?
It depends on the project. Like if it's like with Knight Rider, I got called to talk to the team at Spyglass and Atomic Monster about it, and James Wan had already written up a document that was like, "Hey, here's my vision for what Knight Rider would look like in 2021," kind of thing. And I would take that document and I would try to let that inspire me and be like, "Okay, he likes this, he likes that. This is the vibe that he's thinking of. What fits that?" And then I would grow out from there. If it's something that I'm coming up with, usually I use CardFlow Plus now, which is like an app on my iPad that's almost like it's like digital index cards. I'll either use that or I'll go analog, and I'll just sit with a notebook, and like if I have a concept for something, I'll just write out all the places where that concept can go. And if there's more than 10, if there's like 20 or 30, then I'm like, okay, this is high concept. This is an exciting idea that sparks my imagination. Then I go a little bit further down the rabbit hole. I'm like, okay, what kinds of characters would populate this world? And what is this really about? Why now is a big thing that I ask myself. Like, why does this movie need to be? Why is it important today versus like 10 years ago? Because there are certain themes and certain moments in current events that make a movie a little bit more relevant in one time than another. And then from there, like once I really have a sort of like grasp of the overall, I would say just like the form of it, like the furniture is sort of where it needs to be.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll sit down with like Microsoft Word or Scrivener or any one of these sort of word processing programs, and I'll just like write out a one possible treatment for it. And then out of that, typically I'll take that to my team and say, which sounds so douchey entourage, I'll take that to my people. And I'll take it to my reps and I'll say, hey, I've got this idea. And if they say, hey, this is an amazing idea, we just talked to Jake Gyllenhaal, who he really wants to do something like this, well, then I'll, develop it, take it to Jake's people, and then we talk, and then we see if we can sell it as a pitch. If they're not quite seeing it, if they're like where I remember with Past Midnight, they were like, listen, we love this idea, but that's the Keanu Reeves Russo brothers one. They're like, but we don't know, it's about vigilantes, but it's not based on a comic book, so we don't know if anybody's gonna want that, which is a fair assessment. But I really believed in the story, so I just went out and wrote it on Spec, and then took it to them like, oh, we get it
Oh,
now.
okay.
So it sort of depends on the idea and the timing of it.
When you say wrote it on Spec, what does that mean exactly?
Spec means that you just wrote it for free.
Oh, okay. So you just did the work in hopes that it would get picked up. Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Which is like, it's, there's, in my experience, like the more sort of like quirky ideas, the ones that are difficult to pitch with people understanding exactly your vision, those are the ones that if you love them, you write them on Spec. But I found that it's more ideal to work with to sell a pitch, because then you're developing it from day one with a producer and a studio and maybe an actor or director who can help shape it into something that everybody likes versus just something that one person likes.
Gotcha. Okay. So at what point in the process are you comfortable with telling the world you're working on something?
When the studio sort of let me do it, kind of thing. Like, I'm allowed to say that I'm working on Knight Rider. I can't say what it's about.
Right.
I sold something to Spyglass last week that I can't say anything about. And then there's other things where it's just like it's such a public thing. Like I said something with Michael B. Jordan once that were like everybody in town knew immediately because it was put in deadline, and it was and like the word had spread about what it was really quickly. So it just depends on exactly what the project is. For me, like I don't mind telling people like, hey, I'm doing something with Spyglass, I'm doing something with Netflix, whatever. But you always want to be cautious not to, NDA or not, you don't want to like ruin a studio's plans just because you're excited to talk about what you're working on. It's a bad look,
Yeah, I'm sure they don't forget that very quickly, right?
No, and and that's it. I get it. We had a lot of leaks while I was at Insomniac because an actor would just be so excited about talking about the project, and like we appreciate that excitement, but it sort of screws up the whole. And also, like as a writer, it's so when I say that I've sold something, a lot of people will be like, "Well, when's it going to be in the movies?" And the answer is, I have no idea. So you also want to be careful about talking too much about something as if it's a certainty, especially to an audience that doesn't have a full understanding of how a sale does not mean that it's going to become a movie.
Right. That's really interesting. I didn't quite understand that process. You've given me a lot of insight into kind of how all that operates, which is really interesting because I would often hear about somebody working on something and then not hear anything for years, and then it'll pop up, or I'll ask about it and they're like, "Oh, that that didn't pan out," So I'm sure that kind of both probably happen quite often.
I mean, almost every time so
Yeah.
far. I mean, there's plenty of them that I've written that are still either other writers are writing or we're waiting on a director to read or whatever. But like, you really don't want to like brag too much because first of all, it's a marathon. It's if anything does happen, it's not going to happen for a long time. And secondly, if it doesn't happen, people will start to think you're full of shit. Um,
uh,
so my thing is usually I don't talk about it unless there's like a press release for it. But if I do talk about it, I'm always sort of as general as possible. It's because also like no one's keeping your secret if you start if I told my best friend about everything that was happening at Knight Rider, something would slip from me.
right.
So I it's just I'd rather play it safe and let people guess and get excited about it and then go into it completely unspoiled than just like talk about it for my own sake, for a couple minutes of making people happy. It can frustrate people, but that's just what I find is best.
We live in worlds of secrecy.
Yeah, and the studio like they respect when you respect their wishes, and these are the guys who are paying you, so you definitely don't want to be like, well, I had to tell people the end of Knight Rider just because it was fun. No, you know,
Honestly,
I try to be professional. I try.
yeah, I can't believe things don't leak more, to be honest. Like it's there's so much stuff, and we're in development on things for so long. Like it's a miracle that anything ever gets out without being spoiled.
It's tough. I mean, a lot of times, like you hear about people just like snapping pictures of things on set and whatever, like that. Like things do get out, but I think the people in terms of like leaks coming from writers. I think I think most of us are pretty scared of, and like even as I'm saying, I'm like, well, there are people who writers who do it, but a lot of ones I know, like we're very either scared or respectful towards studios because they're not going to hire you if you're just that guy that just can't shut up about everything that you're on. Just do the work and leave the messaging to them. And if you like when I was told when you invited me to be on the podcast, I asked a couple of the execs like, hey, do you mind if I if they ask about Knight Rider, can I confirm that I'm on it or whatever? Like it just takes a phone call to ask, and I think that sort of keeps you in the clear. But otherwise, yeah, you say something without asking, and you let something go, and it ends up being something that they didn't want you to say, and then it's a problem for you.
Yeah, no, that's really good. I always suggest that people make sure that they can be on the show. I've had a couple that just now recently let me know that their companies are going to let them be on, so I'm super stoked about that because it's like the last thing I want here is for anyone to get in trouble for coming and sharing your story, right? Like that's the exact opposite of what we're trying to do. So
Yeah, and well, like, you're great about not like I won't say their names, but like there have been people who've interviewed me that definitely try to get me to say something, even when I tell them, hey, I can't talk about this, can't talk about that. They'll try to sort of manipulate you into saying something that you shouldn't because it becomes a scoop for them. Never a podcast host, but like some people on like sort of the larger gaming sites, and that's first of all, I feel like that's sort of dickish to do to the audience because you're trying to sort of like ruin something that they should probably experience, just going in blank. But also, it makes things complicated for us ever to go back on your show. So
yeah,
it's good practice, I think, to check with the people who you're working with, find some boundaries, and then like sort of like we did earlier, talk through if there are anything that might be off limits.
right. Yeah, definitely. So that is there an opportunity for, let's say, Knight Rider's finished, done, it's out there, for you to come on and talk about your process with that a little more like after the fact, or is it still kind of frowned upon to do that with your industry?
No, I think it's the same process. Like we would just, well, first of all, like it would have to be my script. Like for all I know, like I might submit Knight Rider, and then in a year they get a director on it who just says, hey, I just would rather do my own thing. Like
Sure.
who knows, right?
Right,
I
right.
don't think that's going to happen. We all seem pretty happy right now, but that, yeah, I'm using that as an example. But if I took this from start to finish on Knight Rider or Legacy, which is another thing that I'm on with Village Roadshow, whatever, and then you called me back and said, hey, we want to talk about your process, I would literally just go right back to them and say, hey, is it okay if I go and talk to them about it? And if they say, yes, but don't talk about this, or yes, then, you respect it and then you do it. But I don't think like as a rule, like I can't. I'm still like an independent contractor. I can go on whatever show I want to do. It's just if I can't talk about anything, I wouldn't be a very exciting
Right.
guest.
It's all no comments.
Yeah, exactly. That's not fun for you guys.
Oh man. So the real question is, have you formed a friendship with David Hasselhoff? That's what we all really want to know.
I have.
That's awesome.
It's good. David Hasselhoff. So Hoff's great. First of all, like he's followed me on Twitter randomly for like 7 or 8 years. I don't know why or how. I think his wife runs his account a lot, but I have no idea. And when the news came out through Deadline, he tweeted at me, and because like I tweeted out a picture of me at Universal Studios when I was like 8 years old in the Knight Rider car.
I remember seeing that picture. Yeah.
and so he saw that and he reacted to it. And we were trying to figure out what's the right timing to talk to him, because we had no script, so we didn't want to like approach him and be like, hey, we've got nothing. But he and I would started to text, and then he said, hey, I want to let's hop on the phone, and we hopped on the phone, and we started talking, and we ended up becoming pals, and he sent me a really wonderful gift. He sent me a David Hasselhoff Chia Pet.
I saw that picture. I didn't realize he sent it to you. That's hilarious.
David Hasselhoff sent that to me, and not only did he send that to me, this is what a mensch David Hasselhoff is. I told him, like, I have a friend in Tampa who's a police officer and great dude, works his ass off, and very just salt of the earth guy. And he's a huge David Hasselhoff fan. I asked Hoff, I was like, hey, my buddy's had a very stressful year with COVID and this and that. I was like, I just want to hook up with something. He's a big fan of yours. Is there anything you could do? And he sent this guy, like, from his own house, like, with his own, he just sent him a whole bunch of, like, autographed posters and headshots and, David Hasselhoff swag. He just, like, hooked this guy up. So, yeah, the Hoff's a mensch.
That's awesome. I love
Hoff's
that.
great, man. Yeah. And it's weird being able to say, like, I live in a world where I go, yeah, I'm buds with David Hasselhoff, but he's a good dude, and I'm hoping we get to actually work together, because we've never worked together before. I did a half day on the Baywatch writers' room for the movie, but none of my jokes got used. So
oh man,
but yeah, he's a good dude.
That's awesome. I love that.
Yeah.
And like one of my earliest memories of like being excited to watch a TV show was when my cousin introduced me to Knight Rider for the first time. So like I have, just nostalgic feelings about that franchise. So I'm super excited that you're working on this, and I hope it, turns out to be something that comes to fruition and we can enjoy. That's super exciting, man.
Thanks, man. I mean, listen, it was one of my favorite shows as a kid, but I didn't, when I jumped on, I was very honest with him, rather, where I said, I'm a fan of the show, but I don't want to write the movie for, like, just for the fans. Like, I don't want to make this like fan fiction. This has to be something that answers the why now. That why is now the right time for Knight Rider, and why, or how are we going to capture a larger audience with it without losing what made the show, so special and unique. And like, and they were game for it. And like the Spyglass people have been like awesome to work with. The Atomic Monster guys, the producers, have been awesome to work with, and everyone seems really happy with what I did. And I'm pretty excited about it. So while I have no idea sort of what the future holds for it, it's still going to be a feather in my cap that I got to do it.
Yeah.
And I hope that this one gets made, because it's the most fun. I'll say that it was the most fun I've had writing a script.
That's awesome. Well, I mean, at this
Yeah.
point, you've already been paid to work on the franchise, right? So like there's a win there regardless of what happens afterwards, right? Like you've done it. You've worked on this franchise. That's really cool.
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of like I wonder if I can even show it, but like, see that over there over my shoulder?
Yeah.
That is that's artwork from an original Batman comic that I wrote for DC back in like 2012,
Oh.
and it was a 10-page comic. I got paid absolute dirt for it. It's like non-canon. It's like all these writers like me, David Lindelof, Steve Niles, like guys way bigger than me, just got to write like these like short, non-canonical Batman stories, and that's the thing I'm like most proud of out of like all the things I've written. It's like there's like you're part of a fraternity now where you get to say, oh, like I wrote on Batman, like oh, I wrote on Knight Rider, I wrote on Popeye for Sony. So it's like even if they don't get made, and obviously like Batman did, but like there is, like you're saying, something cool about being able to say, hey, I was part of this. I'm part of a very small, very like privileged group of people who get to like write on these like timeless characters. Like there's whether or not you've ever watched Knight Rider, you know what Knight Rider is.
Right.
Everybody knows what Knight Rider is. Like,
Yeah.
so it's very, very cool to be able to do it and to get to actually write like a line for Kit. Spoiler: Kit's in the movie. That I can say is very, very cool.
Nice. Yeah, I'm actually glad you brought up Popeye. So that's one of the first things that, after we had become friends that I was like, oh, cool. He's doing something like really neat, this cool thing from my childhood. So like, can you say, or do you know, like, where is that? Like, I know you worked on it. I don't know exactly what kind of, where you got into that process. Is this an example of something that's kind of still being worked on, or did it change directions? Like, how'd that go?
So the short answer to the question is I don't know where it is right now. I know that like they love the script. We all approached it as a sort of like animated Romancing the Stone, if you remember that
Hmm.
movie. Like I want to do like an animated like sort of pulp adventure. At the time, I know they were wondering about the why now of it all. Like, is Popeye, right for today's audiences? Can he smoke the pipe? Can he have the tattoo? Are people going to get upset? All this stuff. And we ended up just sort of putting a pin in it because the studio just wanted to sort of figure out. They had like Into the Spider-Verse that was still in production at no, I think it was like just out of production at the time, if I remember correctly. And they wanted to see sort of like what was gonna happen with that, so they would know the trajectory of the studio. And beyond that, I'm not sure. It's there are things in that process that I don't have insight to because it's like that is an IP that somebody, not even Sony owns. It's like licensed through, I think King Media or Hearst Media, something like that. So there's a lot of contractual stuff that I just don't know about. So I hope they make it one day. But my guess is if they ever did, they'd start with that script, but then they would say to whoever's on it, if you have another take, that's fine. Like this town has no problems like starting from
Sure.
scratch,
Yeah.
and that's fine. If that's what happens, that's okay. But that was a really fun thing for me to work on. It's, again, still a Popeye writer.
Yeah, exactly. And so you say you wrote a script. Did you write a complete script for it? Like, this is the whole thing. Let's go. Like, man, that's fascinating.
Yeah, that was a fun one. That was a real fun one. That was when they said, they brought me in and they said, we want to do Popeye, but we have no idea what the story should be. So whatever you think. So I remember
Really?
yeah, they had no idea where they wanted to take it. They had a version that they tried where like Gendy was on it. But when Gendy left, they were just like, okay, we don't want to be married just to this one thing. We want to see what else is out there. But they didn't know what that thing was going to be. So I told them, I was like, 2 weeks, I'll have something for you. And I remember I think it was like 10 days and nothing. And I was like, I have nothing. And I flew to Florida for a friend's wedding, and I was like stressing out the whole time because I'm like, I'm supposed to go back in like 2-3 days and pitch in this. And then on the flight back, I had the idea and I just wrote the entire pitch on the flight back and
Wow.
pitched it, and they loved it. Yeah, so that was, again, like you just sort of like you develop it like a muscle and you just learn to do it. And if you can't, it's probably not a project that you should force yourself on. Like, again, I don't believe in saying yes just because you can do it. Like, you have to find something you're excited about. And that one I was really excited about the story. So I would love to see it made one day, but you never know. Yeah, I actually, this is true. It looks like Netflix found a script of mine from like 8 years ago that they like. So I might actually like
What?
do a deal on this 8-year-old. Yeah. So like things don't die in this town. Like if it's a good story, it'll, people will notice and, maybe something will happen, just not immediately.
So what does that mean these days that they found your script? Where, like, how do they find it? Is it people are passing it around? Is it like in an archive somewhere? Like, how does that happen now?
It's mostly a mystery to me. I know they pass it around. I know they, someone may have loved it way back when, and just whenever they get an opportunity to, to pitch a studio, they might say, "Hey, I want to produce this." There's everybody is always on the lookout for a good story. It doesn't always feel that way because there are plenty of people in this town who have good stories, and they won't get a shot. But I've had a couple scripts sort of circle back on me after a couple of years, and then something will happen with it. So it's like, I don't know. You just you don't get too downtrodden. You just sort of say, okay, if this one doesn't sell now, it doesn't mean that it's not going to sell later, and you just stop spinning that plate and start spinning another one until there's a reason to go back to it.
Interesting. Man.
Yeah.
So what happens if you suddenly have more work than you can handle? Like, things have, you got a lot of balls in the air, something comes back from 8 years ago. Like, is it do you prioritize and say, this is how much work I can have? Sorry, I can't do this other thing. Or like, how do you kind of approach that?
Uh, it, it, it's a very good question because it's not. It's a. I'll start by saying it's another one of those like good problem to have situations,
Sure.
but you don't want to say yes to everything and then start under delivering. So I think what I would probably do is I would take a realistic look at what's on my plate, and I would take a sort of realistic look at when that project would start, because like even if Netflix or Universal or whoever came to me today and said we want to buy the script, by the time like the contracts are finished and the ink is dry and I'm getting started, it's like a month and a half from now. It might even be longer. So you have to say, okay, it's not about what I have on my plate now. Let me think about what I'll have on my plate by then, which means I will have to figure out a page count to finish with my other thing. And if I can hit that, then I'll say yes to that thing. Does that make any sense? So
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
just
No,
constantly trying to
definitely.
figure out what your start date would be versus how much you'd have to like do to get it done. And if you don't think that you can do it, you have to respect the people who are asking you and say, hey, I'll do this, but I'd have to start later, or I just
Uh,
don't have time. And I've had people like say, hey, we have this movie that we really love you for, and I've passed straight off the bat because either I just knew I wouldn't have the time, or I didn't think that I was the guy to do it. And if
mm,
the one thing you definitely don't want to do is drag a producer in a studio all the way down this road and then be like, can't write your movie. I'm not good at it.
that makes a lot of sense. I would assume you also have to have a mentality of whatever I've promised, I'm going to deliver on, right? So if you've got a full plate and something super awesome comes in, and you can't be like, what, this other thing I said I was going to do, maybe I just won't do that, or I'll push that off. That's not going to be a good look either, right?
Yeah, that's not. I mean, unless it's like an optional step that's left. Like if I made a deal for like a guaranteed rewrite, let's say, and then an optional polish, but then I got this really amazing opportunity. I could, and all I'd be leaving is the optional polish. That I think that's sort of within bounds. Like
Gotcha.
you just say to them, hey, like you'll get another writer on this. I'm going to step away after this pass, but I've done the guaranteed portion of the contract. I would have that specifically happened yet, but I think that there you'd be okay. But what you don't want to do is say, hey, I owe you this. I signed on for this guaranteed rewrite, or I sold you the script, but I changed my mind and I'm not going to do it now. I think you hear about that, but I think that's a bad look. So you always want to ask yourself, maybe off in Weiss. Oh, that's cold. You always want to like sort of ask yourself, am I taking this job for the money, or am I taking this job because I think I'm gonna fucking crush it? Excuse my language, but like that's you want that you want the latter. Like if you're gonna crush
Absolutely.
it, then you take that job. Because it's gonna be good for your career. You're gonna submit a great script and you're gonna make people very happy. But if you're just like, oh, I wanna and I'm saying this knowing it's easy for me to say this because like right now, like my bills are thankfully paid, knock on wood. But like, if you can avoid taking something just for the paycheck, avoid taking it for the paycheck.
That's, I like it. That's a great mindset. And obviously you've been very fortunate. You worked on some great stuff and you're in a good position now, right? So I'm sure it's a little more difficult when you're trying to get going or making ends meet. You know, those kind of, I'm sure the conversations become a lot more difficult, right? When you're like, I'm not great for this, but I got to pay my bills. Like we've all, and early in game development, I tell people, you know, you might need, you're going to work on a game you don't want to work on, right? But you need the experience and you need to get out there and make a name for yourself. So those conversations are probably much more different early on when you're just like, what can I do? How can I get my name out there?
1000%, brother. Like I when I was starting out, I definitely went out for several things that just really weren't my thing, because you are just trying, like at that point you are trying just to like show that you can write. But I think once you have enough work behind you that people have a good sense of what your voice is and what your like what kind of output you do, and it's almost like, you know, when you look at your resume and you're like, what's the story that my resume tells? You know, it does it look like I'm going from a good job to a better job to an amazing job? Does it look like I'm going up, or does it look like I'm going down? If I was to do like a really like high profile script and then take some like, you know, high paying but just real, just sort of generic project that was clearly just a money grab, like people can tell.
Mm.
And I feel like you do that enough times and people get a sense that, oh, you're not really like a creative, you work at the sausage factory and you're
Mm-hmm.
just sort of like, you want to just sort of like do a project and move on to the next thing. So I try not to do that anymore now that I have work behind me that I think speaks to my usual tastes. You know, like I love action adventure, I love action comedy, I love that kind of thing. But there's certain things that I think been put up for that I would have taken as a younger writer, but as a I'm not a veteran by any means, but as a writer who's been established, I don't think it's the right look.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So
Yeah.
we are getting close to end of time, but there's one question I want to ask you for sure. And that is, what is the project you are most proud of in your career so far?
Oh, project I'm most proud of. Uh, that's been made or that's like in development.
Just something that you've worked on. You're like, I fucking killed that, or I'm super excited I got to do it. Like the thing, if I said, you know, basically you'd be like, this is my shining moment, you know?
I think it would probably be a tie between right past midnight. It would probably be my number one, actually. Probably like just by a hair. And Knight Rider would be a close, very very close second. Knight Rider like probably gets excuse me, past midnight gets the win, probably because like, even though I can't really talk much about the concept, it was something that I came up with that a lot of people said could not be sold, wouldn't do well, this and that, and ended up being just a huge step in my career. But Knight Rider, I I think that if it gets made, people will be very very happy and have a great time with it. And I think like just the whole team that's on it, I think is very much in sync on it, and it's a very cool idea, and it honors the show in a way that I think is very the big fans will appreciate, because I know that like when an IP based anything is announced, like there's this clench from the diehards, because they're like, oh, I've seen my favorite things ruined before. Is that what's going to be? And with at least right now creatively, I think Knight Rider is a very fun uh, homage to the original that establishes the why now and feels really cool. So probably one of those two,
I love it.
and of course Batman.
Oh yeah, definitely. That's, I love that you brought that up too. Cause it's like any, being able to like throw out such an iconic character and just be like, you know, I did some work on that, regardless of what the scope of that work was or anything else. It's like, you worked on Batman, right? Like that can go at the top of any resume and any woman to be impressed by that. That's super cool.
Yeah, I mean, like we work very hard on these things, and I think it's easy for people to think, whether it's in video games or movies, it's very easy for somebody to forget about that, what they're reading, what they're playing, what they're watching. took years of somebody's life to bring to life. Like for
Yeah.
them, it's 2 hours or a couple months if it's a novel, whatever it is. But like it's a long time to get these things across the finish line. And there's something very cool about being able to say like, hey, this thing was part of my life for several years, and it's something that like when I talk about it, people have heard of it and they are interested in it. So it's very cool and exciting.
That's awesome. All right. So last thing, is there anything you want to pitch or let people know about, like that you want to make sure they check out of yours or anything like that?
Aside from my Twitter feed, which I haven't been doing as much lately, but like aside from that, there's not much I can talk about. But I don't know, just everyone cross your fingers for me that we get some of these projects I'm on moving. Because if we do, then maybe I'll have to come back and talk about it. But I just feel very excited and grateful that I get to do this every day.
Yeah, man, I get that. That's super exciting. I threw your Twitter in the chat so people can make sure they follow you there. That's good times.
Awesome.
And I'm hoping personally to get out to LA in the near future. And when I do, we'll have to go grab another drink. It's been too long. It's been like,
Yeah, what's it been like? GDC, I feel like. Was
Yep.
that the last time we saw that?
I came out there to run a race in 15 or 16, and me, you, and Drew Holmes grabbed a drink at a place there when I got into town that night. But that's been so long ago at this point. It's like literally 5 years ago. So it's been too long.
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, come on out to LA, man. We'll get some beers for sure.
Absolutely. All right, man. I'm going to jump off here and say my goodbyes. Thank you so much for doing this. It's been awesome. There's been a lot of great clips here that I'm going to tag later and share with people. So
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for having me. And yeah, if anybody has any questions that they want to pitch me, just send it to my Twitter.
awesome. That's perfect. Great, man. Appreciate
All
it.
right.
And I will talk to you soon. Later, buddy.
See you later.